this particular session on this the interorganizational relationship, we will find it is the how this designing of the work organization making the in a particular ecosystem, and is it the competition dead, the changing role of the competition, and the interorganizational framework, the resource dependence, supply chain relationships, collaborative networks. Then as usual we will be discussing about the case study, research paper, book recommendations, and the references are there. So, interorganizational relationships when we are talking about then it is to be existed into an ecosystem. What is that ecosystem? They are relatively enduring, the resource transactions are there. So, whether it is a man, machine, material, whatever the resources are there, and they are having these transactions, and there is a flow and linkages that occur among two or more organizations are there. Yeah, so, when interorganizational relationship starts, so first and foremost is the flow and linkages of the resources are there, on the need based is there. Traditionally, these transaction and relationships have been seen as a necessary evil to obtain what an organization needs. So, it was not taken very positively. Now, earlier whenever we are talking about doing this particular aspect of making this the changing of the resources or the enduring the resources, then it was taken negatively, because organization is not having that resource, and that is why organization is asking to the another organization to share the resources, and that's it was called necessary evil, a negative point. But nowadays it is the common resources utilization. So, in interorganizational relationship it becomes very important. You must have heard about the common workplace organizations, and therefore, in that case there is the different organizations, but they are having the common visitors room, the common the halls are there, interaction halls are there, their syndicate rooms are there, which is used by the all the organizations, and therefore, it is an organization ecosystem is formed by the interaction of a community of organizations, and their environment is there. So, whenever we are having this type of this ecosystem where the communities of the organizations are there, and they are working in a common environment is there. I have written one case study in Chandigarh, and there I have found that is the small organizations basically, and they were the startups type of organizations, and they made a common system where they were exchanging their resources, and it was working wonderfully, and the cost of the production that was reduced. So, a similar concept is a mega community approach is there, and in which the businesses, governments, and the non-profit organizations they join together across the sectors and industries to tackle huge compelling problems of the mutual interest, such as the energy development and the world hunger, or the cybercrime is there. Now, the nature of industry is having the common problems for the all the organizations are there. Suppose you are talking about the textile industry, then these textile organizations, they are having the common problems are there, and here when we talk about the creation of the mega community approach, and in this case the all the stakeholders, especially the companies or industries, then the government and the NGOs are there, and then they work together to solve that particular problem is there. So, this type of this ecosystem is strong in any state or the country, then you will find that is the organizations are developing very fast, and their survival and the growth of the organization, it becomes much better. So, does it mean that is these industries are not competing each other? Is the competition dead? No. Company can go it alone under a constant the onslaught of international competitors, changing technology, and the new regulations are there. So, these international competitors which are making this change of the technology are there, and when they are changing their technology, then with understanding of their own strengths and weaknesses, they can take the decisions. For this they can go alone, and there is no need for that is they are dependent on the other organizations are there. So, organizations around the world are they embedded in complex network of the confusing relationships, collaborating in some markets and competing fiercely in others is there. So, here these confusing relationships and collaborations in some markets, that will making the changes into this the relationship of the organizations are there. So, sometimes they are working together, sharing resources, sometimes they are competing. So, naturally there will be a network of confusing, because when they are competing, but they are competing with the help of the resources given by the same organization. So, therefore, that is they are unable to understand, we are collaborating in some market and competing in other markets. So, therefore, in that case that system, the strategy that has to be developed. For example, Ford and GM, they compete fiercely, but the two join together to develop a 6-speed technology, and this particular 6-speed transmission which is the Hyundai, Chrysler and Mitsubishi jointly run the global engine manufacturing alliance to build the 4-cylinder engines are there. So, one side they work together for the nature of industry. You see, if they for the automobile industry, if there is a need for these global engine manufacturing alliance is there to build a 4-cylinder engines, then all these Hyundai, Chrysler and Mitsubishi they join together. While when we talk about the 6-speed transmission is to be developed, then the Ford and GM join together. However, they compete each other. So, traditional competition which assumes a distinct company competing for the survival and the supremacy, and the other standalone businesses are there, no longer exist, because each organization both support and depends on the others for success and perhaps for the survival is there. So, what is the basic concept is? So, basic concept first is as I always mentioned, that is a sustainability. If you are planning to be sustainable by a nature of industry, then all the organizations, even though they are competing together, but for the sustainability they will join hands, they will be there. And that is why so whenever we are talking about the competing or collaborating, and then this decision that exists whenever it is a question of the survival is there. Now, the changing role of competition. Within business ecosystem, managers learn to move beyond the traditional responsibilities of the corporate strategy, and designing hierarchical structures and the control systems are there. If a top manager looks down to the force order and uniformity, the company is missing opportunities for the new and evolving external relationships are there. And whenever if the top manager is to making these uniformity, then naturally he will be missing of this type of these opportunities, and in this new world the managers think about the horizontal processes rather than the vertical structures are there. So, important initiatives are not just top down, they are also across the boundaries, separating the organizational units are there. The changing role of competition is there. Managers learn to see and appreciate the rich environment of opportunities, right. So, therefore, in that case we have to catch the opportunities, what are the opportunities are there. So, that environment of opportunities is to be created, and that grow from the cooperative relationship with the other contributes to the ecosystem is there. And that is why when you want to grab the environmental opportunities, what you do? You collaborate, you cooperate with others, those otherwise are your competitors, and then other contributes to the that ecosystem is there. So, an ecosystem to support the competitor that develops, it is a beautiful concept is there. And basically, as I mentioned in the previous slide, it is for survival and the growth is there. The old role of management relied on the operational roles and boundaries are there. So, this is the modern concept that has not been that much preferred earlier, because the old role of management which was the appreciated or the understood, and that was the operational role was there, and in the operational role there was nothing like this collaboration was there. Most traditional managers are skilled at handling the operation roles which have traditional vertical authority and are accountable for the business results, primarily through direct control over the people and resources are there. So, therefore, whenever traditional management system is there, they will be not going for the collaboration. They will focus on their operational cost, and they will try to reduce the operational cost because that was a traditional way of doing the job, and then the direct control will be over there, over the resources are there. Collaborative roles on the other hand, when we are talking about, that is the do not have the direct authority over the horizontal colleagues or the partners, but are the nonetheless accountable for the specific business results are there. So, now here in this case you will find that is the collaborative roles, because the traditional managers are focusing on the operational roles, and the modern management practices they are focusing on the collaborative roles are there, and therefore, they will not have any direct authority over the horizontal colleagues are there and other partners, because they will give understand that is he is the person who will be doing his job with the equal stature is there. Now, interorganizational framework is there. The models and perspective for the understanding interorganizational relationships ultimately help managers change their role from top down management to the horizontal coordination across the organization is there. So, this is the interorganizational relationships ultimately help the managers because their role is changing. Their role is not from top down management, rather than to horizontal coordination is there. So, this relationship among organizations can be characterized by whether the organizations are dissimilar or the similar, and whether relationships are the competitive or the cooperative is there. So, this is to be decided. That is what type of the relationship the organization prefers and organization is having. By understanding these perspectives, managers can assess their environment and adopt the strategies to suit their needs are there. So, the first perspective is called the resource dependence theory, and it describes the rational ways organizations deal with each other to reduce their dependence on the environment is there. The second perspective is about the collaborative networks, wherein organizations allow themselves to become the dependent on the other organizations to increase the value and productivity for all is there, and there is a understanding of the collaboration. The third perspective is the population ecology, which examines how new organizations fill niches left over by the established organizations, and how a rich variety of the new organizational forms benefits society. The final approach is called the institutionalism, and it explains why and how organizations legitimate themselves in the larger environment and design structure by borrowing the ideas from the each other is there, and that will be the final approach will be there, and that is the institutionalism is there. So, when you talk about the competing, when you are talking about the collaborating, when you are talking about the institutionalization, and then in that case it becomes very important, that is you are having the larger environment and design structures, so that you can borrow the ideas from the each other is there. Now, I would like to talk about this interorganizational framework is there, and in this interorganizational framework you find that is a similar is there, competitive and cooperative is there. Now, here organization type and organizational relationship is there. If organization type is dissimilar, then the organizational relationship will be competitive will be there, because there is a resource dependency is there. Whenever it is the organization type is similar, the organizational relationship that becomes the population ecology is there. While if you are going for the cooperative, in the cooperative the organization type which is having these organizational relationship and the dissimilar organizations, then there will be the cooperative strategy will be there. So, therefore, in this case you will find that is the resource dependence, population ecology, collaborative network and institutionalism is there. So, ultimately it is institutionalism which is becoming more and more important is there. So, for analyzing the different interorganizational relationship, first you have to understand what type of the interorganizational relation framework is there, then you can talk about the interorganizational relationship. Once you understand the framework, then whether we should go for the competition or we should go for the collaboration, that will making you help. Now, we will take the resource dependence first. Resource dependence represents a traditional view of relationship among the organizations are there. So, this theory argues that organizations try to minimize their dependence on the other organizations, because if I will be more dependent on the other organization, I will get exploited. So, for the supply of important resources and try to influence the environment to make the resources available, organizations are succeeded by these having the independence and the autonomy is there. While when organizations feel resource or supply constants, the resource dependence perspective says that maneuver to maintain their authority through a variety of strategies. Our one strategy is to alter independent relationship. This could mean that is the purchasing owner of the suppliers or the developing the long term contracts or the joint ventures to lock the necessary resources or building relationship in other ways. Other techniques include the interlocking directorships to include members of supplier companies on the board of directors, and these joining trade associates to condition needs are there. So, use the lobbying and political activities or merging with the another firm to the getting the guarantee resources and the material suppliers is there. So, ultimately this is becoming a very important, that is the how you are developing that association relationship. There is a supply chain relationship is there. To operate efficiently and produce the high quality items that meet customers needs, an organization must have the reliable deliveries of high quality, responsibly priced supplies and materials are there. This supply chain management refers to the sequence of suppliers and purchases covering all stages of processing from the obtaining raw materials to distributing finished goods to consumers. The figure illustrates a basic supply chain model is there, and many organizations develop the close relationship with the key suppliers to gain the control over necessary resources are there. So, therefore, in the case of the supply chain management, you are looking for the managing the sequence of supplies and purchases, then this type of these practices that will help you a lot. Here we will talk about the basic supply chain model. It is the horizontal relationships, these are the suppliers, these are the manufacturers, distributors and retail stores are there. So, here you can understand that is the when we are talking about that is the cooperative style of these interrelationship organizations, that becomes very important is there. So, these collaborative networks perspective is an emerging alternative to resource dependence theory is there. Companies join to become more competitive and to share scarce resources. Large aerospace firms partner with one another and with smaller companies and suppliers to design the next generation job is there. Large pharmaceutical companies join with the email boundaries firms to share resources and knowledge and spur innovation is there. So, therefore, in that case you will find here to design the next generation jets, example is given, more competition are there with one large aerospace, that is with the smaller companies and supplies to the design next generation jets are there. Large pharmaceutical companies join with the small biotechnology firms to share resources and knowledge and spur the innovation is there. So, an emerging alternative to resource dependency is becoming the necessary for the collaborative network is there. Companies join to become more competitive and share the scarce resources are there. Alliance requires managers who are good at the building networks are there. So, companies can share risk and cooperation, it is a prerequisite to the greater innovation, problem solving and performance is there. So, why to collaboration? So far we have discussed about, that is about the relationship, the strategies between the, our collaboration strategies is there, is important whenever you are having the scare of resources. So, that inter-organizational relationship that prevails. But question arises, why collaboration is there? Why all these interest in inter-organizational collaborations? So, some key reasons include the sharing risks when the entering into the new markets is there, and that is the primary time. For any organization, when the organization is entering into the market, it becomes very important there is someone to take the bear the risk, and therefore, mounting expensive new programs and reducing cost and enhancing the organizational profile in selected industries or technologies, that is becoming the key reasons for developing the collaborations. Cooperation is a prerequisite for the greater innovation, problem solving and the performance is there. North American companies traditionally have worked alone, competing with each other and behaving in the tradition of individualism and self-reliance, but they have learned from their international experience just how effective inter-organizational relationships can be there. So, earlier there was these American companies, they are having the lot of resistance traditionally for the inter-relationship organizations, but now they are also ready to go for these collaboration strategies are there. So, inter-organizational linkages provide a kind of the safety and net that encourages long term investment. This is also important. That is, this is not the short term relationships, rather than because both the organizations, they are adopting the technology, they are adopting the manufacturing process, and therefore, in that case they will go for the higher level of innovation and performance as they learn to shift from an adversarial to a partnership mindset is there. Cracking the code of sustained collaboration HBA article talks about when most organizations strive to increase collaboration, they approach it too narrowly, right. Even though they want the collaboration, but their vision is not wider. So, as a value to cultivate, not a skill to teach. So, they create open offices, chalk up collaboration as a cooperative goal and try to influence employees through other superficial means that do not yield progress is there. So, companies that excel at collaboration in contrast realize it involves instilling the right mindsets. So, widespread respect for colleagues' contributions, openness to experimenting with others' ideas and the sensitivity to how one's actions may affect the teammates in the others are there. So, cracking the code of the sustained collaboration, it talks about the HBR article which talks about the practice empathy is there, and the being receptive to the views of someone who disagree with you no easy task. But when we approach the situation, when with a desire to understand our differences, we get a better outcome is there. Be comfortable giving and receiving feedback is there. Being receptive to the view of the someone we disagree with, it is too easy task, but when we approach the situation with a desire to understand our differences, we get a better outcome is there. Speak with the clarity and avoid the abstractions. So, therefore, if you want to go for the collaboration, long time collaboration, in any collaboration there are times for the open discussion of ideas and times where when someone, regardless of whether he or she is a leader, needs to cut through the confusion and clearly articulates the path towards the when we communicate with the others. The psychological research shows we are often too indirect and abstract, and our words they carry more weight if we were more concrete and provided vivid images of the earth is there, and our statement would be the judges more the truthfully. Teach people to learn and follow. Organization's best collaborators, those known for adding the value of interactions and solving problems in the ways that left everyone better off, are adopted both leading and following. Now, moving smoothly between the two as appropriate, that is, they are good at the flexing is there. And the last one is there, tools for the training the people to work together is help win-win interactions. Investigating each other's needs is the key to win-win interactions. In the successful collaborative projects I examined, people were open about their personal interest and how they thought they could contribute to solving the problem. Such transparency allows the participants to explore the vision of the winning and ultimately get more favorable results are there. So, in this case we will find that is the it becomes very important, that is nowadays the common workplace culture, the collaboration with the competitors, and I remember in 2009 when this type of the economic recession was there, then there was a co-optation. Co-optation means resources of the competitors were used by the organizations which were having the competition, and this collaboration between the competitors, and that word was given, that process or system was given as a co-optation is there. So, therefore, it is suggested that is the if possible you can also go for this type of this the inter-organizational relationship, making the uses of the resources by the both the organizations on the need basis is there. This is the case study about the AT&T, and it talks about that is that iconic organization getting a wireless with the singular wireless is there. You must be knowing about this organization and what it faces a through viral, including then number 2 telecom company, then the Verizon Communications. So, which has also been involved in many mergers and acquisitions over the past several years. Other competitors include the cable companies such as the Comcast and the Time Warner Cable, which are the bonding together television, broadband and the internet phone services. This stealing the customers from the AT&T and all over the country. The cable providers have also found a partnership with the Spirit and enabling them to provide the wireless service as well. For its parts, AT&T now sells the packages of the wireless phone services, internet access and the pay television, as does the Verizon. The two companies have recently taken integration one step further by airing the video programming from Saturday night live clips to the user generated video across all these platforms. That enables them to sell advertising as a new source of the revenue as growth of wireless begins to slow. However, the risks are high, and both companies that face the significant uncertainty and many new rivals as they enter the new areas of businesses are there. Now, here you will find that is the this is the research paper is there which talks about a metric for the collaborative network. The objective of this paper is to provide a metric that could be used to define success in a collaborative networks. Also to provide a useful mechanism for facilitating a discussion between the partners in a network is there. So, this paper is talking about the metric for the collaborative networks, and the findings clearly demonstrate the need of measuring all perspectives of the collaboration and highlights the potential pitfalls of the measuring perspectives that can be measured easily. So, you can refer this particular paper and you can find out that is the how these companies which are the working together then in that in a particular stage, like here it is in the resulted in development of a metric for the construction is concerned. So, this how they will making these useful whenever we are talking about the working togetherness and creating the collaboration with the competitors are there. How this paper is also having certain limitations and implications, but the concept of that is about the collaborating and competing together that prevails and it is not that is it is separately, but it is jointly both the organizations are competing with the using the resources of each other is there. This is the book, that is the strategic connections, the new phase of the networking in a collaborative world, which is on the basis of these competitors, and even these competitors are there and they are going for this type of the collaborative work together is there. This book talks about this collaboration with the competitors are concerned is there. It comments a positive proactive acknowledgement, align networking activities, leverage their contrast, earn trust, boost their social acumen and master conversational skills, and here you will find there is a deepened interaction is there. These are the references which you can refer for your further studies, as this is a book which is basically it talks about the designing of work organization in much details, and that is Draft RL and Upal understanding the theory and design of organization. 11th edition has been used by me, Synergy Learning, and this book is giving you the much detailing about this type of the designing of work organizations with other references also. So, I am sure by learning this type of the practices, your organization will also adopt the collaborative style with the competitors. Thank you.